Step ahead of your time to Panasonic microwave ovens.
The affordable transportable cellular telephone.
The official wireless remote controller.
When I wanted something for my Nintendo 64.
It's a personal computer from Apple, and it's as easy to use as this Macintosh.
So EWaste is usually an item that contains a circuit board and is very easy to differentiate from electrical waste because electronic waste will have like digital parts, while electrical waste is just a cord with a switch that is an on and off switch. So for example, e-waste will be a TV, it will be a cell phone, it could be a printer, it could even be a microwave. It could be very difficult to define it, but it's mainly about what is inside, again, like more like circuit boards that will make it e-waste.
Computer monitors is probably one of the worst ones. Cell phones, because so many people have them and because we go through them pretty fast, are becoming a pretty big problem. Computers, old laptops, old desktops, all of that stuff falls in the category of e-waste. And the faster we turn it over, the faster people use them and get a new one, the bigger the problem becomes. The process of e-waste disposal, from cradle to grave, if you will, it's created obviously in the factory, it's used by the consumer, and when they decide they're done because it's broken or they're over it and ready to replace it, they would then take their device to hopefully a responsible place. If it was not going well, the consumer, after using that device and deciding they were done, would take it to their local church or school, and those companies then box it up into a shipping container and send it overseas, often to China, Indonesia, India. Those are three very common ones. Once it arrives there, it's given over to someone, to a local there, who would then take that shipping container, load it onto a truck, drive it to just huge open dumps. So you would see piles and piles of computers and piles of cell phones.
If they're not broken down in a safe manner, you can be exposed to lead in the glass from the cathode ray tubes. You can be exposed to mercury in the LCD monitors and TVs.
There are a number of people working, often folks who are a bit desperate for work. So you see a lot of children, you see a lot of folks who are single parents, you see a lot of people who are just generally living in pretty extreme poverty. They're the ones who are being hired to break it down.
For the workers, they're exposed to a lot of these heavy metals. So if they don't have the right equipment to protect themselves, so a lot of these heavy metals will go into their organism.
If they are breathing it or if it's getting into their drinking water, you're going to create a whole host of health problems, anything from respiratory problems like asthma, lung cancer, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. You could also wind up with just general decreased respiratory ability, which is going to affect your circulatory system. That could lead to things like heart attacks. If it gets into your groundwater and you start drinking it, especially if you're talking about things like mercury, you can wind up having nerve and brain damage. Some of them are also things that can affect pregnant mothers and the fetus inside, so you're getting a multi-generational effect. Well, Marin specifically, I would suppose that the affluence that we have allows us to just consume a phenomenal amount of electronics, and the per capita consumption of e-waste is so high in an area where we can afford it. And we're also perfectly willing to just sort of chuck it and say goodbye. And so not only is the volume that we require really great, but the turnover of how often we get new devices is also quite frequent. And that just means we're generating a lot more e-waste than the average American would be.
My name is Ron Berry, and I'm the General Manager for Computer and Technology Resource Center. What Computer and Technology Resource Center does as a function is we try to find new life for these devices. Our first objective is always reuse before we break it down and recycle it. We refurbish between 500 and 600 computers a year on the average and donate them back to the community. All recycling needs to come from a ground roots effort. I mean, the companies can only do so much. It starts with the consumer to buy products that can be easily reused or easily broken down and recycled. Progress, I mean, this is a real challenge in this industry and in all recycling industries. And it's going to take a joint effort from consumer to the companies. I can't really say that there's been progress made, because as we continue to address the problem continues to grow. So sometimes it feels like an uphill battle.